Hi, everyone. My name is Matt Shed, a DeKalb resident and the host of Chakira's Corner. This is a show where we discuss pertinent agenda items from the Board of Commissioners meetings with Commissioner Chakira Johnson, the current presiding officer of the Board of Commissioners. We will also share community updates from District 4 of DeKalb County. And Commissioner Johnson is also a member of two county committees. That's the FAB Committee, which handles finance, audit, and budget, and the PWI Committee, the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee. Commissioner Johnson has 5 focus areas for District 4 of DeKalb County. Those are housing, infrastructure development, youth development, and Memorial Drive revitalization, and services for new Americans. Today, we are very excited to welcome DeKalb County's Director of Public Libraries, Allison Weissinger, as our guest this episode. Director Weissinger, thanks so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
It's good to be spending this time with you and learning more about all the resources that DeKalb Library System provides for us. But before we get into all that, we really like to get to know you a little bit and learn about your interests and how that got formed in serving the community in this way. So was there a particular moment where you thought, I really want to go into working at the library?
Well, I've always been a big reader and had, lots of opportunities to go to the library as a child, my school library, going to the public library with my mom. My hometown public library was in California in Escondido, and we actually had a library cat at our library, which, I always wanted to go visit the cat. And then when I moved to Georgia, I was working at the Emory bookstore, and I met a librarian who happened to be the trade book buyer there. And I was at the time contemplating applying to graduate schools, and she suggested that I look into library school. And so I actually applied and got in and ended up going to library school, and have worked most of my career, pretty much the entirety of my career, in DeKalb County.
Oh, that's great. So you've seen it operate probably on lots of different levels then.
Yes, when I started in 1997, we didn't even have the internet. I didn't even have a like a legitimate computer like people would know computers today. We had a little IBM dumb terminals that we used for the catalog. It wasn't until I'd been there for about a year that we got actual PCs and word processing, all that, and kind of a GUI interface for the catalog. All that happened in the mid to late 90s.
Wow. So you've seen a lot of change take place probably in how the library functions, and probably even the services that you all provide. I'd imagine that's changed a lot in the course of would that be 30 years?
Just about 30 years. So it's definitely very tech heavy now, but at the underlying part of what libraries is still kind of the same. We're about books and stories and information, getting knowledge, and whether the book is a paper book or an ebook or an audio book, it's still a story or information. So there's, even while the access point might be different, some of the underlying purpose is still the same.
Great. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that with us. And I think now we're going to bring Commissioner Johnson onto the stage so I can facilitate a conversation between the two of you. All right. Great. Commissioner Johnson, how are you?
Good morning, Matt. How are you? Good morning, Director Weissinger. How are you doing?
Good morning. I'm great. How are you today?
Doing well. Doing well.
Good. I'm excited to jump into talking about one of my favorite public services, the library. So Commissioner Johnson, when you think about District 4, where do you see, and just DeKalb County in general, where do you see the library making the biggest difference in everyone's life?
I think back to my childhood. I was definitely an avid reader. I was a kid who mom had to make go outside because I would rather go to the library every week, get a stack of books, and just be in my room reading. So I've always been an avid reader. For me in middle school, it was like Stephen King books. I remember reading The Stand, probably way too young when I shouldn't have been reading it. But so for me in my childhood, I spent a lot of time at the library. And I think for District 4 and for DeKalb County as a whole, it's so important that we support our libraries and have that opportunity for our kids today to experience, even though it may be in a different way than it was in the late 80s, early 90s when I was growing up. A lot of things have changed since then, but the bottom line is the access to their imagination and stories and what reading can do for kids and their knowledge is just so important. And it's just really integral that we support those services for our constituents.
Absolutely. And so kind of building on that, Director Weissinger, most people kind of just just solely associate the library with books, checking out books. Can you tell us a little bit about the other services that you all provide and how you kind of conceive of yourself? And, obviously the books are at the center of it, but some other things that you all provide for the community.
Well, we do a whole host of things, and kind of piggybacking on what Commissioner Johnson said about growing up in the library, one of the things that we do a lot of programs. So we have a lot of activities and programming for young children. We're one of the few community resources kind of operating in that birth to 5 space before kids go to school. And so you can come to the library for story time. You can come to do some craft programs. You can come and maybe while the kid is looking at books and attending the program, there's a lot of stuff for the parents there. We circulated a lot of technology and also have, programs and resources, for adults.
That's great. And, going to story time with my toddler when it was kind of a lifesaver in a lot of ways, because it was like days we didn't have childcare, and it's like this is a free activity, and like she gets to socialize too with other kids. It was really fun, and I went at the Tucker branch close to my house. But anyways, yeah, it's just there's so much to offer, and kind of building off that. Can you tell us? I know you've got a reading program going on right now. Can you just tell us a little bit, kind of focusing on the youth services that people provide, and then kind of what I was talking about, how you can provide support for guardians and families?
Yeah, so for kids, we just have a ton of activities, and one of the kind of a special program that we do for the really young children is called 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten. This is something that's actually funded by our library foundation. They raise private money for this, and it's a kit that every family can get for when you have a new child in your family. You come in and you get your kit. It's a little folder. There's also an app that you can use if you don't want to track things manually. That you can track them in an app called Beanstack. But it's basically a little kit that gives parents and caregivers tips on how to read and engage with stories with their young child. And the basic premise is, if you, with your kid, before they enter kindergarten, you've got 5 years. If you read 1,000 books before they enter kindergarten, they're going to be much more prepared when they first enter kindergarten to succeed in school. So they're going to know a lot of words. They're going to know more words than their peers. They're going to know their numbers. They're going to know their letters. They're going to know their shapes. They're going to just know the mechanics of how a book works. Some kids who aren't exposed to books early on don't even know how to hold a book right. So this 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten really helps build that foundation with a family to involve their kids with reading literally from day one, so that they can succeed later. And I think a lot of folks have heard this idea that when you're younger, you kind of have until 3rd grade, you're learning to read. And so that once you hit 3rd grade, you can read to learn. And that's really kind of that milestone that we want kids to hit, so that they can then go on and become productive members of society and really, enjoy a lifelong of learning.
No, that's great. And Commissioner Johnson, is there anything, like building off of what she said, like that you've seen how you've seen the library system impact constituents.
I think she's really hit the nail on the head, especially the stat about learning to read before third grade, because there's a stat out there that if if you don't know how to read by third grade, they call it like the pipeline to prison, and how that is just such a critical age to make sure that you are a productive citizen in our society. Um, so when we think about that and making sure that we're having our young kids know how to read and just everything, that it just opens so many doors, hearing the stories and engaging that imagination and just allowing them to see themselves maybe bigger than their current situation. I think all of that plays into just youth development. And even though the DeKalb County government is separate from DeKalb County School Board, this is one integral way that we as a county government do integrate and help support our children and youth and their education. And I think the way that the library does it with all their different programs, I mean, 1,000 books before kindergarten, it may seem like a lot, but even if you make it halfway, your kid is still going to be so much further ahead than the average kid who may not have read 2 or 3 books. So it's just an amazing program. I'm very excited that we're offering it.
No, that's great. And it's also such a great way to bond with your child, to kind of slow down and sit next to them and go through that together. So Director Weissinger, in addition to the youth programs, what would you say are some of the biggest ways that the library supports families and adult learners as well?
So yeah, we have a lot of resources for just folks of any age. And just to kind of go back one little step, Commissioner Johnson made the comment about kind of how we relate to, DeKalb County schools and DeKalb County government are separate, but the libraries are there to support the schools. And one of the other ways that we support school kids is our summer reading program. And that's a kind of an incentive-based reading program that has a theme every year. This year's theme is kind of a dinosaur theme. It's called Unearth a Story. And it helps prevent the summer slide. So it keeps kids engaged in, reading and fun science STEM activities over the summer, so that they then, after 8-10 weeks of being out of school, if they're still reading and engaged in library activities, they go back to school and they haven't experienced as great a summer slide as if they were just sitting around, playing video games or watching TV that whole time. Not that video games are cool too, but some of the books can certainly are fun and help kids over the summer. And then we also have a lot of special activities during the summer, specifically for Summer Reading Club, that are often funded through our Friends of the Library groups and our foundation. But some of the other things we have for adults is we do have a lot of electronic resources now. So even if somebody's maybe really busy and they feel like, well, I don't have time to go to the library, we have, we're kind of open 24/7, because we have a really great website that's dekalblibrary.org. And once you have a library card, you can log into and set up accounts with a whole number of resources, things like Libby, things like Hoopla, Palace Project, New York Times, Press Reader, Wall Street Journal. These are all ways, Galileo, these are all resources that you don't even have to come into the building for. You can check out these things online. And it's just a massive amount of content there for folks. So if you maybe have a long commute, you can download audiobooks. Maybe you're going on a trip and you don't want to carry a bunch of, print books in your bag because, they're heavy. You can download the ebooks and read them either on your phone or on a tablet, or maybe you have a Kindle or some other e-reading device. So there's definitely pretty much a resource for just about anyone, just available online.
Yeah. I'm so glad you mentioned Libby. I just recently, about 6 months ago, discovered Hoopla, and it was like, oh man, they've got even more on here, audiobooks. And then I used the New York Times app or the code that you all provide constantly. So I don't know, you're saving me like $120 a year probably on.
Oh, more than that. New York Times is $30 a month. For
Oh
full
my
access.
gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So $360 a year then. So that's, yeah,
You
there's
can
just,
even do the Wordle now and track with that.
oh, awesome.
That should get people interested for sure.
So many people don't know about that. I've turned a couple of my friends on to that. Like, you're paying for the New York Times. You don't need to if you live in DeKalb. You have a library card. So, anyways, yeah, so many great resources. Commissioner Johnson, do you have any ways that you've seen, constituents be supported, beyond just children, like adult learners and things along those lines?
I think one way I've seen it for adults in our community using the libraries, I've attended community meetings that are held at the libraries. I've held a community meeting at the library, but also I've seen adults come in and use the computers, whether that's maybe they're looking for a job or they're just doing some research, but it gives families an opportunity to have computer access or internet access that maybe they don't have at home. And having that access in this day and age is critical. So providing that for adults and families, I think is so important. So on top of the programs that we're offering, just the access to the buildings and the community spaces, and even, we've been actively working to beautify the outside of the libraries as well, and make that just a place where people can come and hang out respectfully and, get a little bit of nature. So there's just so many great things that the libraries add to our communities.
Yeah, they're really beautiful on the inside too. The Tucker one I'm thinking about, and the one in downtown too. Lots of good light, and yeah, it's just really nice spaces.
And we just recently, a few years ago, we completed the rehab of Sue Kellogg Library. That's closest library to me, and it needed it so drastically. And now going in there with the great lighting, like you're mentioning, and it just looks so amazing. And I know it's one of the smaller libraries, but the community really loves it and was really excited to see that rehabilitation happen.
Yeah, I love the way that library turned out. And I think that was it was really super cost effective. It was less than $2 million to do that renovation. And it's a beautiful space. We were able to reuse those cool glass doors that the Friends had purchased years and years ago on the meeting space, and just kind of a bright, fresh color scheme. And it's just the new restrooms, and just kind of opened up that whole space. It really is lovely now.
It is. The community loves it, so we're excited.
Put you in a reading kind of mood going into a place like that.
It does, and it has a great kids section that's really bright and fun too. So it's one of the smaller libraries, but it's a really good library.
Absolutely. Director Weissinger, you mentioned some of the online tools that people can access, or services like Hoopla, Libby, and New York Times. Are there other things that you would want someone to know about what they can get with a library card, or just through access to the library, that they might not have known about?
Sure. So yeah, in addition to things like, because most people know Libby now, we have LinkedIn Learning. So if somebody is maybe looking to go and maybe change careers, or kind of want to dust off some of their skill sets, or improve in some areas, we have a LinkedIn Learning subscription that folks can access. We also have access to a database called Mango Languages. So maybe you're going on a trip and you want to, learn a little bit of French or Spanish or German, or, there's well over 20 languages. You can sign up for an account there. It's a really good computer program there to help you learn a language. We also now we circulate technology. So in addition to having PCs at all the libraries, numbers of PCs and robust Wi-Fi inside the branches that extends out into the parking lots, we also circulate hotspots for folks and Chromebooks. Now they're in high demand, especially the hotspots. So you can't always just walk in and get one. But they're definitely we have them. They're well used because I think as Commissioner Johnson mentioned earlier, not everybody has high-speed internet at home, and this is a way that if folks maybe don't have or they need more time than when the library is open, they can check out one of these hotspots and use it at home. You check it out for 3 weeks, just like a book or anything else. It's pretty much unlimited data for that month, and you just bring it back, and it's free. It's paid for right now through our foundation.
That's a really, really good asset to have. Free Wi-Fi for 3 weeks. I mean, you can't beat that.
Yeah, because like you said, Commissioner Johnson, it's just a necessary element of so much of what we do. And have you encountered with constituents how they use things like internet access or job searching, those services through the library, or perhaps like just educational programs that are available?
I think the ones that Director has mentioned, and then the hotspots and just giving constituents access is really important. And I think also the library in Clarkston does a really good job of connecting with their immigrant community and being a support to them in ways that may be different from different libraries. So I think just in all the different services and access that they provide, there's just about something anyone can, if you want it, you can find it at the library. No matter what, if you're just there for hobbies or if you are needing to get that access to learn the language so you can communicate better, maybe you are an immigrant, or if you're looking for a job, there's just those services that can be provided, or just also a place to have some refuge as well.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought up Clarkston. I used to live right by that library, and it's that's another great building and setup. And it just triggered the question in my mind of Director Weissinger. Do you see that often, like individual libraries kind of respond to what communities they're in different ways?
Oh, definitely. We recognized long ago that DeKalb County is a very diverse county. We have 23 branches, and really so many of the communities are very unique. And we tell our managers and the youth services librarians assigned to those locations that you work with your community, respond to your community, we have decentralized programming for our libraries. Some library systems do all their programming and book selection in a centralized fashion, but we have a decentralized model here because we really rely on our librarians to be the connection in the community and that point of contact where they are going to know who in Clarkston, who are the nonprofits operating there, what is your what do your patrons where in Clarkston, where are they coming from now? That's a refugee immigrant community. I was the manager at that location back in 1999, and it was very different then. When I was the manager, there were a lot of Bosnian refugees, Vietnamese refugees, and some Iraqis. And now today, it's totally different. It's kind of responding to the international situation. So we really do want those librarians to kind of have their finger on the pulse of the community, buy the books, and plan the programs that are going to meet those needs. And what somebody is interested in at Stonecrest is different than Dunwoody, is different than Wesley, is different than, say, Toco Hill. So you really do kind of find things. Certainly there's some things that are uniform. Everybody wants story time. everybody wants some of the one program that we do a lot is we call it Book a Librarian. It's one-on-one help with a librarian. So those are widespread throughout the system. Folks like book discussion clubs, but maybe the book club at Wesley Chapel is going to be, a little bit different focus than the book club at Decatur. And some branches have multiple book clubs to kind of meet all those varying needs.
We've talked a lot about so many of the great services that libraries provide. Director Weissinger, do you feel any threats to the library kind of existing as we've come to know and love it currently? And any pressures that you might already be experiencing in terms of sustaining the system in the way that you'd like to?
There's always an element of folks out there that think that because we have the internet we don't need libraries, which is just not true. And I think most people do realize that. But there are, I think, threats coming kind of from other areas. There's certainly there are funding threats at the federal level. The current administration did try to eliminate the Institute for Museum and Library Services, which is the federal agency that distributes over $230 million to public libraries throughout the country. So far, right now, that was successfully libraries across the country kind of fought back against that and through the courts, and were able to get that struck down. So right now our federal funding is secure, at least for now. But you kind of, that's always a concern there. And then even at the state level, there's sometimes, there have been a number of bills coming through over the last few years, kind of targeting people's freedom to read. They tend to be maybe couched in different terms, but libraries see them very much as a threat to us and our ability to make all kinds of information available to all kinds of people. We live in diverse communities, and people should have the right to read the kinds of materials that they want to read. And we have, we strive in our collection to make sure that the books and the resources that we have, reflect the entire community. And so, that's very important to us. It's kind of fundamental to the public library is to have books and programs and resources available for everybody. And when folks come and want to exclude certain aspects, it doesn't sit well with us, and we see it as a threat.
Yeah, absolutely. Commissioner Johnson, is there anything you wanted to add to those concerns?
Yeah, I think it's so important, and I'm grateful that the library system is taking that stance. I think it's so important that we have access to diverse books and diverse information. I know me personally, I grew up in Pueblo, Colorado, very undiverse community as a little Black girl. Being able to go into the library and find books that reflected me and that I can see myself in was so very important. Even though there wasn't as many back then as there are today, but it's just, there is nothing wrong with diversity, and there's nothing wrong with making sure everyone can see themselves reflected in the information and the stories and the programs. And I'm grateful that the library system was able to be successful in thwarting some of that, because I think that just supports what we really stand for, not only District 4 or DeKalb County, but truly, I still believe America is truly that melting pot that we used to be proud of. And I think that's just one example of how and why we should be proud of being a melting pot.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of the funding concerns, I guess, what are ways that people can support to make sure that we continue to have this important collection of services? I mean, I'm guessing call your state representative or national representative or whoever. That's one, but maybe you have some other ones.
Well, yeah, definitely making your voice heard to your congressional representative. the federal funding, and even we do get a fair amount of state funding, and so then you call your local reps for that. Because again, even though the vast majority of our funding comes from the county through through county property tax and sales tax, some of the things that we get from the federal government and the state government are things. It's things that they're spending money kind of collectively on behalf of library systems all across the state. And so they're really using those dollars very wisely to kind of make sure that everybody has equal access across the state. And that's not something that all states do. And so I think it's really important. Again, even though it makes up about together maybe 10% of our funding, it's the things that we get through that funding is stuff that we would never be able to afford on our own, because they're basically doing a lot of bulk buying for us. So things like Galileo, the statewide courier service, Library for the Blind, some of a lot of our technology resources are purchased that way, and they're very important.
Absolutely.
And then how important or integral are the friends groups and the foundation? You've kind of touched on the foundation a little bit, but I know there are some friends of the library groups as well.
Yeah, we have probably about maybe 9 or 10 fairly active friends groups, and they mostly hold book sales and do other little fundraisers. And what's really great about them is that they're kind of like our army of supporters out in the in the branches in the local communities, and they're again raising money so that we can do some of the extra special things mostly for children. So, for example, with 1,000 books before kindergarten, we're giving things away to people, and we can't really use taxpayer money to give books away, but we can use private money to give books away. And sometimes it's really important for a kid just to have some books on their shelf at home that they don't have to take back to the library. They can be their books that they can have access to all the time. So those friends groups really help us do that, and they're helping to buy supplies or maybe refreshments for a program, or to pay for something kind of special during the summertime, like a puppet show, or maybe buying supplies for some of our STEAM and STEM programs. So that money is really very important. And then our library foundation, they're now up to, I think in 2025, they raised about $400,000, and that goes for a variety of activities. Again, they pay for the Hotspot program. They also give away little sort of smaller grants to the libraries for programming. They pay for a lot of supplies. They buy extra books. This is just they pay for for another program we have called Learning Spaces, which is another child literacy focused program. So there's just a lot of stuff that they do that we wouldn't be able to do with the money we get from the county.
No, that's a great piece. And I think just in terms of supporting the library, what a great way, because I think in addition to the funds that provides, it's just people know, then you tell people, yeah, I'm a friend of the library, and it just gets the word out a little bit more. And people seeing that activity and community engagement is, I think, so important. I guess we're to the spot here where I kind of want to hear if you have any final takeaways or points that we've covered that you'd really want people to remember. If you'd like to share any of those, Director Weissinger.
Did I just get an upgrade there? I guess I just would like everybody to know that, the library really we have something for everyone. And if you haven't, oftentimes people as they come as a child or come as a teen, but then, they move on and get focused on their career, but eventually, they might come back when they have kids, or if they have strayed away from the library, I would encourage folks to come back and check out a book. Just, to read something for fun. Reading, we like to say here, reading builds empathy and provides a window to the world and really creates understanding. And again, just allows people to maybe see something or understand something from another person's point of view. And I think, the world could use a little bit more of that right now. So come see us.
Beautiful. Commissioner Johnson, anything you want to speak on that we've covered or haven't covered in this conversation?
I think we've covered a lot, but I think what Director Weissinger was just saying was so important, that reading can build empathy. You can, maybe you don't have the money to travel, but you can read a book, and if your imagination can take you there, and you can experience it and understand it. And that understanding of diversity and cultures and experiences really shapes a more empathetic community. And I agree. I think we need more of that right now. So please make sure you're checking out your libraries. I know I just got my foundation letter request in the mail, so I need to fill that out and send that back in. I'm already happy to support, but I'll be happy to support the library even more.
That's great. All right. Well, Commissioner Johnson, on that note, do you want to tell us, actually, let me start with Director Weissinger. Are there ways people can, like newsletters, or ways that people can stay in touch with you all? I mean, obviously there's the website, but are there other ways that people might want to get plugged in?
Sure. We do have a newsletter, and you can sign up for that on our website, DeKalbLibrary.org. We're on Facebook and Instagram, so we promote a lot of things that way. We're also the host, I didn't mention earlier, we're the host site for the Georgia Center for the Book. That's the Library of Congress program, and they do a lot of really high-profile author programming. They send out a weekly email, so you can access that from our website too. So those are really the best ways. And then if you come into the branch, we do publish. We still have old school print calendars of events. So we do a monthly for kids and a monthly for adults. So that's also a great way to kind of keep track of what's going on.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And Commissioner Johnson, how about staying in touch with you? What are some of the best ways we can do that?
Yes. If you need to stay in touch with me, you ever have any needs or questions, please email me at shakira@dekalbcountyga.gov. You can also find me on Facebook and Instagram under @commissionerchakirajohnson. We're also on Blue Sky or X, which is formerly Twitter, as @commissionercjj. And then also please consider subscribing to the YouTube channel right here. If you do find this podcast helpful and you want to know whenever a new podcast is released, just remember to hit the bell icon so you can receive notifications in the future. And again, I appreciate everyone tuning in, and we look forward to sharing more information with you in our next episode.
All right, great. Well, Dr. Weissinger, thank you again for joining us. It was wonderful to spend this time with you, and makes me appreciate my library system even more. So thank you.
Yes, thank you for all your great work.
Well, thank you.
All right. We'll see you all next time.
See you next time. Thank you, Matt.